Alright, welcome on in. We're live right here. Sorry about the audio. We're going to have to figure that out in the future, but we're going. We're on hand. We've got it coming up. The rankings are coming up in just a few moments. That's what's happening. That's what's on tap. But of course, the game, Ohio State, Michigan, we expect those teams will be in the top 5 after a big week happened last week. A ton of crazy chaos has occurred, and even more will likely follow this week here in the college football playoff rankings. That's coming up in I think we'll get the rankings in about 5 minutes time here. They're finishing up a college hoops game on ESPN. So, let's see if my computer wants to work today. But anyway, this is a big Saturday. This is rivalry weekend. A ton is on the line this week, including for teams like Ohio State, Michigan. They play. The winner takes the East, and likely, if they win this week and then win the Big Ten championship, we expect they'll be in the playoff. It's interesting to see what the Big 12 can do. Obviously, the Big 12 has teams like Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. We expect those two teams to potentially, if they win their next 2 games, would have an opportunity to get to the playoff. But a team like Baylor, out of 2 losses, what kind of credit did they deserve if they somehow go on to win the Big 12? That, of course, is a complicated scenario, but it still is in play. But there's still a ton on the line. We'll know a lot tonight. Where does the committee value Cincinnati? Where do they put them? A week ago, and of course, the huge headliner was that Oregon lost. So, I mean, it's not like I thought we would see Oregon losing. I thought they beat Utah. I was wrong, very wrong, and it's going to be very interesting where some of these teams end up getting ranked tonight, and I always sound like I'm rambling here. Because I am. Because I am rambling. Because I'm always trying to find something. To put it in the right place at the right time to make this thing work. To make it so that the thumbnail uploads. To make it so that we're live right here. It's a big game. It's a big slate of games. Again, the big noon game. Ohio State, Michigan. CBS has Alabama taking on Auburn on Saturday. And I think it's a huge one between Wisconsin and Minnesota. Wisconsin potentially wraps up that Big Ten West in that one. I mean, there's a ton on the line. And we'll see. Can Iowa win against Nebraska on Friday and force Wisconsin? I mean, can Wisconsin beat Minnesota? That's a huge game. There's a ton on the line there. And Minnesota, the opportunity to, I mean, if there's probably a scenario where Minnesota could find themselves in the championship game. But we'll see. We shall see. But anyway, we're ready to get the rankings out. And what my expectation is that we'll see Georgia at 1. We'll see Alabama State at 2. I think some people would say Ohio State at 2, but I think it's got a lot closer between Ohio State and Alabama. But with this college football playoff committee, I don't think they value Michigan State. I think they're going to drop Michigan State real far, and that team's going to really take a hit. So, but I think that will be your top 3: Georgia, Bama, Ohio State. And then number 4. Do they bump Michigan ahead of Cincinnati? I say no. I think they put Cincinnati at 4, and they put Michigan at 5, and Notre Dame at number 6, with Big 12 teams rounding at the top 10 somewhere in there. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and we're almost ready to get those rankings going. I better get it started, get it set up, get it rolling, because we're about to get it going here with the rankings here on this Tuesday night. I'm excited to see what happens. It's always fun when your phone decides to restart as you're trying to get this going. All right. The Oregon loss definitely knocked out the Pac-12. That we can be clear about that. The Pac-12 has got to be done. The Big 12 is a very interesting thing. If Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State, they rematch the next week. And if Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State twice, that's big. Now, if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma, and Baylor, of course, beats Texas Tech, which the Texas Tech Baylor game will be 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time on FS1. All right, we've got the rankings. Number 25, Arkansas. Clemson comes in at number 23. That's huge. They're back in the rankings. Houston at 24. I expected them to appear in the rankings. They're still in there. 22 is Texas San Antonio. And 21, that is San Diego State, who potentially, it's a very interesting scenario in the Mountain West. There's 3 teams vying for 1 spot in the championship, and then there's 2 teams in the other spot. San Diego State, I believe, a win and they're in. But they play Boise State on Friday. CBS will have the coverage 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time, and 9 a.m. Pacific Time. It's a very early kick for San Diego State. That's huge, especially on a shorter week for them. I think it could play a factor. I don't know which team's going to be more ready, but Boise State has gotten a lot better since early in the season when they lost to Oklahoma State, which some people in the beginning of the season are like, Oklahoma State, Boise State shouldn't have lost to Oklahoma State. Yeah, they probably shouldn't have. But it is what it is. All right, NC State comes in ranked number 20. Utah Utes, after beating the Ducks, just go up to 19. Wake Forest drops all the way down to 18 after losing to Clemson. 17 are the Pittsburgh Panthers, and 16 are the Iowa Hawkeyes. So, I mean, I think Iowa just lives around 16 around these rankings. But credit to Pittsburgh. They're into the ACC championship. They have the opportunity to go to a New Year's Six Bowl. I think Wake Forest can get it done this week. They take on Boston College, I believe. Wake Forest, if they win this week, they're in the ACC championship. If they lose, it's Clemson that goes. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they're already in. Pittsburgh, Wake Forest. That game very much could be for a spot in the New Year's Six. That's huge. And one of those schools could end up playing a team that ends up just short of the college football playoff. I think the Big 12 will get possibly a team in the playoff and a team in the New Year's Six. Interesting. It's all going to be intriguing. Where does Michigan fall if they were to lose to Ohio State? What bowl game would they go to? That's all up in discussion. But we're about to get another 5 teams in the rankings. Iowa at 16. They go up 1 spot after beating Illinois. It was an unimpressive victory. I was not impressed in Iowa at all. But I think Utah could have gone up a little higher. They are a 3-loss team. I think they could have been ahead of those ACC schools in Wake Forest and Pittsburgh. I think Utah would be at 17 if I was doing the rankings. All right, A&M. They increase a rank to number 15 in the nation. Of course, Texas A&M boasts probably the best win of the season when they beat Alabama. Wisconsin up to number 14. The BYU Cougars are at 13. Michigan State is at 12. The Spartans. Of course, they got absolutely destroyed when they played Ohio State on Saturday. Oregon, after losing to Utah, they fall to just number 11. Now, with just 1 week plus the conference title game to go, you probably want to be in that top 8. I don't think anyone outside the top 10 has even got a shot here. So, now, teams that are left, we got a ton of them. I got a ton of them on my watch list. I think Ole Miss is in the top 10, if we're keeping track. We'll see if they're at number 10. We'll see if they're higher than that. I don't know. Notre Dame's in the top 10. Bama, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Baylor. 3 Big 12 teams in the top 10. The Big 10 will have Ohio State and Michigan. Interesting that we still don't have Penn State in the rankings, but this committee just devalues Penn State. I would have put Penn State ahead of Clemson. I think they're a better football team. I think they're a better football team than San Diego State, NC State, Utah. I don't know why Penn State is always turned down by this committee, but hey, it's what they want to do. It's whatever the committee wants to do. I'd probably pick Penn State over Michigan State this week, quite frankly. But we'll get into that a little later in the week on our college football podcast. You can listen to it. All right, our top 10 has begun. The Sooners of Oklahoma will be the 10th team in the nation. Of course, they take on the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. It'll be a top 10 matchup. Saturday Night Football on ABC. Must-see game there. We'll see how high Oklahoma State is, but I expect Baylor to be either at 8 or 9, and I expect Oklahoma State to maybe be as high as 7, maybe 6. I don't know. I don't know if Oklahoma State is a hot ahead of Notre Dame at this point, but it is the Rebels of Ole Miss at number 9. Not too far ahead of the Sooners of Oklahoma. Just one spot. And, I mean, Ole Miss a 2-loss team. Lost to Bama. But they beat A&M. They get the Egg Bowl on Thursday night, Thanksgiving night, on ESPN. It's big for Ole Miss. I don't know how the committee. I don't think Ole Miss really has a path to the playoff. I respect the Rebels. They just had one too many losses. They could have beat Bama. We'd be talking about the Rebels. All right, the Baylor Bears are at number 8. They, of course, this week get Texas Tech. A win against Texas Tech, and they're still in the running. As long as the Cowboys beat the Sooners, then Baylor would be represented in the Big 12 title game, and it would be the first time that Oklahoma misses out in the Big 12 title game since its reintroduction back a couple of years. I think they've done maybe 4 of them now. This may be the 5th one. I'm not sure. But I know it was OU that played TCU, I think the first 2 times at least. Maybe the first 3. I don't know. And then it was Texas, Oklahoma, I believe, last year when they rematched. So number 7 are the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. So the Irish of Notre Dame are into the top 4. Or I mean to the top 6. I expect them to be rated 6. But Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, number 7 versus number 10. I think there's still a shot if one of those 2 teams can run the table. Baylor, quite frankly, a 2-loss team still in the running. Are they the highest ranked 2-loss team? The Baylor Bears? I mean, is that... I know that Bama's got just 1 loss. I know Georgia's got none. Notre Dame has just 1, I believe. Michigan's got 1. I think Baylor's the top-ranked 2-loss team, even though they don't play in a power conference. I mean, they do play in a power conference, but I don't know what their non-conference schedule was. That's what I'm just trying to say. They definitely play in a power conference, but I think Ole Miss may be more deserving. They may not be. The resume for the Baylor Bears, let's pull that up real quickly here, is their non-conference schedule very, very weak. At Texas State, Texas Southern at home, and the BYU Cougars. The win over BYU, I think, is one of their best of the season. So the first 2 games I mentioned, very weak wins. But other than that, win over Iowa State was a very close game. They could have lost that one. They very much would have been out of the playoff if they lost to Iowa State. The win over Oklahoma, very impressive. They beat Kansas State. Didn't allow Kansas State too much. Didn't beat Texas by a ton. The loss to TCU was a very close game. They very much could have had it. The only real blemish on their resume for Baylor was that loss to Oklahoma State. All right. Your Georgia Bulldogs are still your number 1 team in the nation, as we all expected. I don't think it was a question too much. I think we all expected Georgia to be the number 1 team in the nation. Now the question is, and the Ohio State, they're number 2. They climb in the polls. I think this is a huge statement for the committee that they are rewarding Ohio State for dominating against Michigan State. Ohio State, they played well on the field. Alabama didn't play quite as well, and they quite frankly reward Ohio State. I didn't think that the committee would do that. I didn't think the committee would reward the Buckeyes. Now, I do expect Alabama to come in at number 3. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But now, that does mean the play for if Bama were to get a second loss, that they would be in a little more danger. Because they're rewarding just what we've seen is Bama and Ohio State flipping. Ohio State, I think last week was actually at 4. And Oregon was at 3. But now, even though, I mean, can we say that Ohio State's resume got better that much? No. But it was an impressive win on the field. And it was a beatdown. Quite frankly, if Ohio State plays like that, if Ohio State plays like they did on Saturday, I think they'll win the national title. But I don't know if they can put that performance together in January. The semifinals on New Year's Eve, championship in January. So Bama at 3. Now, who occupies the 4th spot? Will it be Cincinnati, Michigan? I don't think it's definitely not going to be Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to be at 6. Michigan and Cincinnati are 4 and 5. I mean, if they put Notre Dame at 4, I might just have to end the show here, because the committee, they've done crazy things before, but that would be, of course, Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. The Bearcats of Cincinnati, they are indeed the 4th ranked team in the country. They're in position to make the college football playoff. Should a team from the Big 12 not leapfrog them, but that is still in play. A Big 12 team, I believe, still has the opportunity at 1 loss. Now, I would take an undefeated Cincinnati over a 2-loss Baylor team. That's just my opinion. I would take an undefeated Cincinnati team. Now, Cincinnati this week, they get ECU on Black Friday on ABC. That's 2:30 Central Time, and then in the conference championship, they'll be playing Houston. It's on ABC as well on championship Saturday at the same time as the SEC title game. So you'll have to get your second TV out, get your third TV, get your laptop out. Michigan at number 5 and Notre Dame at number 6. So, I mean, we learned a little bit tonight. We learned what this committee values. We learned that they value dominance and beating quality opponents, whether it be home, away, neutral site. I mean, we've got to reward Ohio State for what they played. They played a tough schedule down the stretch. They get another tough game. If they beat Michigan, we can certainly say that Ohio State will be at number 2. I think a Michigan win is a much better win than Auburn. Auburn's down in the top 25 this week. So I got to put Notre Dame back on there. Anyway, a lot said by the committee tonight about really what they, I mean, head matters. We see Cincinnati well ahead of Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame still 1-loss team. I don't know if Notre Dame has a shot. Does Notre Dame have a path to the playoff? I think there's an opportunity, but it's very, very slim. They take on Stanford this week. It's on Fox in primetime. Hey, there's a lot that can happen. I think there's a path for certainly the top 8 plus Oklahoma to get into the playoff. I think there's 9 teams vying for 4 spots here. Michigan, they control their own destiny. Alabama controls their own destiny. Ohio State controls their destiny. Georgia, certainly. If they win this week, I think Georgia's a lock into the playoff. Even if they lose to Alabama, no matter how bad it is, I just don't think you can punish this Georgia Bulldogs team. It was a big statement tonight to move Ohio State ahead of Alabama. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that. Anyway, hope you're enjoying your Tuesday night. in our rankings show, our rankings coverage. Yeah. So, anyway, enjoy your Tuesday. I don't think I've got too much more to say here, other than the most shocking thing for me tonight was that they held back. They didn't put Penn State even in the rankings. That they actually rewarded Ohio State and put them at number 2. And other than that, I mean, that they actually put Cincinnati ahead of Michigan. I think that's huge. I think, and right now 2 teams from the state of Ohio are in your top 4. So that's one thing, for the people out there keeping score at home. Notre Dame, I don't know. There's a chance. There's probably a path out there somewhere. But I think for Notre Dame to get in, they would need probably a Cincinnati loss. They'd certainly need Georgia to beat Alabama. I just don't know how you'd put Notre Dame ahead of Alabama, even a 2-loss Alabama. I'm taking the Tide. Honestly, I'd put Alabama above Notre Dame. So Notre Dame certainly needs some sort of chaos. They need a Baylor to win the Big 12 title game. At least some sort of 2-loss team to win the Big 12 title. That's what they need. They need a ton of chaos. They may need a big, either Ohio State or Michigan, whoever wins that game. They might need them to lose to a Wisconsin or Iowa or Minnesota, whoever ends up on the other side. It's still a lot. I mean, still anything could happen on that side of the bracket. Another thing, Oregon only slides down to 11. That was abysmal. The 2 losses for Oregon this season. They lost to a terrible Stanford team, and then they lost just terribly. They got destroyed when they played Utah. I thought they'd reward Utah more and punish Oregon. They didn't. That'll do it for us. Peace out, and enjoy your football. Again, Ohio State, Michigan, this Saturday, live only on Fox.